Are you 60 with around 2.4 million saved, but still unsure if you can retire right now? In this video, I'll show you a smarter way to know if you're truly ready, beyond just hitting a number, so you can leave work on your own terms and finally enjoy the secure and fulfilling retirement you deserve. So let's say you open your retirement accounts, see $2.4 million and think, this is it. I've hit the magic number everyone talks about. But here's the question. Does that number alone really tell you if you can comfortably retire tomorrow, or is it just one piece of a much bigger puzzle? Relying on that single number ignores everything that might change once your paycheck stops. What if unexpected healthcare costs arise? What if the market dips right after you retire? See, sticking to a magic number without a deeper plan could mean cutting back on travel, seeing family less, or lying awake at night saying, is my money really going to last? So instead of treating 2.4 million like a finish line, let's put it through a more realistic test. So what we can see here is that firecalc.com has actually created a very nice tool, and it'll allow you to do a lot of things. But what we're going to do is just say, let's say you wanted to spend $10,000 a month. So annual spending of $120,000 a year. And let's say you have a $2.4 million portfolio and you want your portfolio to last 30 years. Now there's a lot you can do here on FireCalc. You can add in other income sources like when your Social Security might start, your future retirement date. Now for the spending, I'm going to have the spending adjust for CPI so that you can maintain a constant purchasing power. Of course, there's a lot of different options that you can choose from. You can also adjust, well, how is my portfolio invested? And for today's illustration, we're just going to show assuming 75% stocks and 25% bonds. And again, there's a lot more you can do, but we're just going to keep this simple for now. And what we can see here is that it says, okay, FireCalc looked at 124 possible solutions over a 30-year period. And here's the bottom line. FireCalc found that 32 cycles failed for a success rate of 74.2%. Now, at first glance, that might sound decent until you realize that many people see 74% as getting a C in grade school. And let's face it, nobody wants to be a C-level retiree. And some might panic at the 26% failure rate, but remember, in these simulations, failure just means you'd have to adjust your spending at some point. Maybe trim a few expenses, not scrap the entire plan. Retirees rarely sit by and just run out of money. They adjust long before disaster strikes. So instead of 26% chance as a flat out failure, think of it as a 26% chance you need to dial back spending if things don't go as planned. That's more like a built-in warning system than it is a looming catastrophe. Now, free tools like this are a huge step beyond a single static number, and they're a great place to start fine-tuning your retirement approach. In fact, everything the FireCalc website has put together is really quite well done. But even these simulations have limits. In a Monte Carlo simulation, failure can mean missing your goal by $1 or $100,000. It doesn't tell you how big of an adjustment you need or exactly when to make it. A 74% success rate is better than a blind guess, but it still leaves uncertainty on the table. And that's where our next step comes in. So we have seen how tools like FireCalc can highlight when you might need to adjust, but they still leave you with questions about how to adapt in real time. This is why I want to walk you through a set of signals or practical checkpoints to know if you're actually ready. But first, let's set a baseline. We're going to assume you already know your spending needs, or at least have a solid estimate. And if you're still unsure, do not worry. At the end of this video, I will point you to a resource that can help. Now, to show you exactly how these signals work in a real-world context, I want to introduce you to Sam and Helen. They face some tough decisions, and by applying these signals, we help them find clarity. They are 63 and live here in California. Now, I have tweaked their details and changed their names, but their situation is a real world example. They came to us and said they probably could retire now, but they did not want to do it if it meant sliding backwards on their lifestyle. They have kids and grandkids out here and higher costs because it is Southern California. So here's a quick snapshot of their world. They have about $100,000 in cash, $700,000 in a brokerage account, and half of that being gains. An IRA for Helen worth about $600,000, an IRA for Sam worth about $1.1 million, and their home is worth about $1.9 million with a low rate mortgage of $320,000. They have Social Security benefits if they wait until their full retirement age of $3,000 a month for Sam and $2,100 a month for Helen. And they'd like to spend about $7,000 a month on regular living expenses and add another $15,000 a year for travel into their mid-80s. And they knew they needed private health insurance at around $1,000 a month for each of them until they turned 65. Now they also plan on 2 future car purchases of about $50,000 each in today's dollars. And they feel comfortable with some level of risk in their investments, but they're not exactly sure how much. And by the way, everything I show you here today includes an advisory fee. So if you ever decide to do this kind of work yourself, you could potentially give yourself a raise from what I'm showing you. Now let's walk through the 7 key signals that tell you if you are truly ready. And let's start with the first one, which is having a strategy in place for handling potential health events. And I start here because if you ignore health planning, you could set yourself up for disaster later. Maybe you decide to self-fund from your portfolio, or you plan to tap home equity, or maybe you buy long-term care insurance. Maybe it's a mix. For Sam and Helen, they decided to use their home equity as a backstop because they had built so much up. They also wanted to set aside about $200,000, adjusted for inflation, to be protected at the end of their plan. If health costs never showed up, that extra money could go to the kids. But if something does happen, they have resources that do not involve slashing their day-to-day lifestyle. And this turns a big unknown into something manageable, so they are not lying awake at night worrying about a what if. Next, you need to understand the right time to turn on Social Security or pensions. We have covered this in other videos, but the decision is personal. Some want to take it early and invest, others want to wait until 70. For Sam and Helen, we worked through the math and found a good fit. Helen would start at 67, Sam would delay until 70. This way, Helen's benefits would start earlier, taking some pressure off their portfolio, while Sam's benefits keep growing to the max. That not only boosts their retirement income in the long run, but it also protects Helen if Sam passes away early by giving her a larger survivor benefit. Now, with that timing in place, the next signal is understanding your early retirement withdrawals. In other words, how much money do you need from your portfolio before those guaranteed checks kick in, or before you hit Medicare? And Sam and Helen have higher initial expenses because of private medical insurance. So let's run the numbers. And so what we can see here is that within their financial plan, we've established $7,000 a month for living expenses. And of course, that's after tax. We're accounting for private medical for the both of them of $1,000 a month. And then travel at $15,000 a year. They also have their mortgage payment, which we can expect. And so that puts their total after-tax expenses of about $140,000. Now, we don't have too much to worry about by the way of taxes right now, because for now, we're just assuming they withdraw first from their taxable, then their IRA account. I'll talk more about taxes as we go through the video, but for now, just know there's not going to be too much by the way of taxes that we have to worry about. So their first year need from the portfolio is about $140,000. If we project this over the first 5 years, it's going to come to about $680,000. And this is critical knowledge because it's needed for the next signal, which is you need to align your portfolio with your plan, not the other way around. For Sam and Helen, we knew that they needed about $680,000 over 5 years, which is roughly 28% of their portfolio. That means we kept around 30% of their investments in stable conservative assets like high quality bonds. And if the market is doing well, we can peel off gains from equities and use dividends for monthly income. And if the market hits a rough patch, we can use bonds to pay themselves so they do not have to sell stocks at a loss. Now, this is not a set it and forget it allocation, but it gives them a starting point that matches their short-term needs and reduces sequence of return risk. Now let's talk about taxes because ignoring them can cost you a fortune. Another signal you are ready is understanding your lifetime tax liability and having a plan to reduce it. And Sam and Helen have significant IRA balances that could lead to higher taxes down the road. And so we worked through their plan and found that based on their income needs and planned spending, the optimal amount of Roth conversion was actually within the 22% bracket, but you'll notice here, it's not to the top of the 22% bracket. It's actually just enough so they fit right below the first IRMA bracket. And you'll see here that that is the optimal amount of Roth conversion. Now, if you have a good eye, you might notice that if we drop down to the filling up the 12% bracket, that their average tax rate would actually be a little bit lower. It'd be about 10.19%. And so you might be asking yourself, well, isn't that the optimal bracket? It says here that that's the lowest average tax rate. But again, when we consider Medicare premiums and we factor that into total tax, we find that converting right under that first Medicare premium bracket will help them pay the lowest lifetime tax bill possible. Now, converting up to that amount is projected to save them about $443,000 in lifetime taxes. Now, you'll notice that for net income, it doesn't have a difference. And so you might be asking yourself, well, what's the point in doing this whole thing? What's the point of doing Roth conversions if it's not going to make a difference in my net income? And that's where you see this net legacy amount goes up by $247,000. And really what that means is they're projected to have about $250,000 more in after-tax available assets, which is a really big piece for them because it gives them an additional bucket of money, an additional bucket of tax-free money for all of life's unknowns. If they were to have some unforeseen expenses come up, they now have an additional pool of money that they could pull from tax-free. And now with that tax strategy in place, another signal you're ready to retire is you understand your probability of planned success. But my guess is it's not a probability of success you're thinking. You may recall earlier that when we looked at that tool FireCalc, it provides a probability of success, something like 74%. The probability I'm talking about is the probability of adjustment, because probability of success is very helpful to know your chances if you'll have to make an adjustment. What it doesn't tell you is how much you may need to adjust your income, not just to ensure you don't run out of money, but also to ensure you don't keep growing a portfolio for the sake of growing and never have the opportunity to actually spend and enjoy the money you've worked so hard for. And what we can see here is that Sam and Helen can know with confidence at the start of their retirement that their portfolio would need to drop by 41% in order for them to need to cut their monthly income. Now, how much would they need to cut their monthly income by? It'd be about $300. And really this helped them sleep well at night because they knew, well, hey, as long as my portfolio is operating within this bottom guardrail, I know we might need to cut some income and I know how much by, right? Because before this, they didn't know if that would be $300 or $3,000. Now, on the flip side, right, if their portfolio does very well and it grows by 21%, then they can have an income increase of about $1,400 a month. And again, the whole purpose of this is to ensure that we're not just growing a larger nest egg for the purpose of growing, but that they can actually spend and enjoy their money that they've worked so hard to save and accumulate. Which leads us to the last signal, which is stress testing your unique plan against things like higher expected inflation, exceptionally poor market conditions, and the like. For Sam and Helen, we stress tested their unique income plan against some of the worst periods in market history. For example, one of the things that they were very concerned about was rising and persistent inflation given the current state of the economy and national debt. And so what we did is we stress tested their plan against a period like the stagflation era in the late 60s through the early 80s. And during that period of time, inflation peaked at 14% and interest rates spiked to 17%. And we showed them, well, it wouldn't necessarily be a smooth ride as shown by their guardrails here, but their income could most certainly keep up. So this green bar here means that their portfolio has done very well, so they'd be hitting that upper guardrail and could have an income increase. But even if they never hit those upper guardrails due to the portfolio performing exceptionally well, the plan was calling for income increases because inflation was so high, and so it wanted to maintain that purchasing power. And again, for their unique income plan, we can see that they would have made it through that stagflation era just fine, at least in a historical context, and actually would have had more income than we planned. So after seeing these signals, you know retiring confidently is about more than hitting a magic number. You have a way to time your income, protect against unexpected health or market surprises, and manage taxes wisely and adjust as life unfolds. So instead of relying on blind luck or feeling trapped when conditions change, you can now have a flexible roadmap that grows with you. And this is what true retirement readiness looks like. Less guesswork, less worry, and more clarity as you step into the next phase of life. But now it's time to make sure that you are not missing the mark on one of the biggest retirement derailers, which is miscalculating your expenses. And in this video, my business partner, Anthony, will help you discover why most methods of guessing your spending are flawed, and you'll learn a much better way to pinpoint what you'll actually need throughout retirement. This will help you feel even more secure knowing that the numbers you are using actually match your future lifestyle projections. You can watch that video right here.